This is an M-rated game, so viewer discretion is advised. No Sleep for Kaname Dante from AI The Somnium Files. This is a spin-off game from the AI Somnium Files series. It takes the gameplay from the Zero Escape games, which would be the escape rooms, and the dream-walking parts of the AI games, and blends them into something that's not that great. It's not the worst game that I played that has two games mixed together. That would actually be Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, but it's a close second. The AI games are known for two things: eye trauma and the lack of consent. Eye trauma, since two of the characters have AI eyeballs installed into their eye sockets, and they will talk to them in their heads, and they can access dreams or somniums of people, whether they agree to it or not. Because in the world of AI, consent is just an option. And this one is no different. Dante straight up tells a person that he's going to read that person's thoughts, and he wasn't asking. So they have not changed in that regard. Kaname Dante works for a government agency named Abyss. They have the ability to jack into people's heads and see their dreams, and use that to solve mysteries by seeing their deepest secrets. The story behind this is that a music idol named Iris has been kidnapped and forced to take place in an escape game. The locations change, and she has Dante on the phone helping her. While she's in between games, Dante is spending his time looking for her by talking to anyone he's previously met in the past, even if it makes no logical sense. This is one of the many problems with the story in this one. They shoehorn in all the characters from the previous games, with some of the most illogical reasoning. Surely the person behind Iris's kidnapping, where it looks like she's been taken into space, is the local mobster. It's just the most obvious leap to jump to, of course. It's very clear they tried to save as much money as they could by reusing locations for the previous games. And that means bringing in characters that have already been made, and try to have them make sense of the story, which they really have no business being in. They will give you the most generic backstory of all the people in the game, for the people who've never played the other games, but they're very cagey when it comes to any plot points from the other games. I would have loved it if they put more detail into this, as it's been a couple years since I played it, and I needed a refresher, and these vague backstories are not a lot of help. I would love to talk about the insane story and the escape games themselves, but it would be filled with spoilers. There are so many parts that just make no sense. The characters never try to turn the table on the escape game creators, or have any sense of self-preservation. They always just go with it. I was very angry about halfway through the game, when a plot point came in, and I instinctively said, "F you," to the TV screen. I wish there was an option in the game to curse out our self-righteous co-worker. I'm going to keep it vague, but the person in particular was the real villain of the game. They come off as a good person who will manipulate logs to save people. There's also another plot point in the game where they're trying to explain why this person is doing certain things. And I was losing my mind. And as they were going through their explanation on why they were doing this and why they thought this was okay, I was just flipping them two birds. But the game desperately tried to justify it. I'm going out of my way not to give spoilers here. I'm doing the most generic ways of talking about this, but I really want to talk about it because I hated every second of this plot point because it made no sense with the story they were telling. Now, this is a fairly short game for an AI game, and I finished it in about 13 hours, when most of them run about 25 to 30 hours. However, the main reason they tend to run that long is they tend to stretch out the plot by having us do some excess somniums. I wish I could say this game was tightly plotted, and interesting in the somniums this time around, but amazingly, they were still dragged out, and there are only 3 of them! 2 of them were basically the same location. The opening somnium, which you would think you would want to make interesting to get people invested in the plot, was a slog to get through. The other 2 were better paced, but that one was just terrible. I could see people playing it and just thinking, wow, this is boring. I just don't want to play this anymore. I could say it gets better, but not a ton better. The last one was definitely the most interesting, which was good. The Somniums mostly reuse locations from the previous games, which was my complaint from the last game. My other complaint being its bloated length. The first game in the series had interesting Somniums to explore, and intriguing areas. There were a few new locations in this, but they were very simplistic and not engaging. Just like every game, you only have 6 minutes to explore someone's dream. Time moves slower as you stand still, so you can plan out your moves, and each action takes a certain number of seconds to do it. I know it sounds complicated, but it's much simpler than it sounds. There are 4 escape rooms in this, and they're okay at best. The first one was definitely the most interesting, but just like all the rest, you have to suspend so much disbelief in order to wrap your mind around the fact that this could actually be happening. The Zero Escape games were fun because they felt like they built an escape room in an existing location, and it was believable enough. This had so many huge locations with complicated moving parts, and it would cost a fortune. It would be very obvious that they're building it, since one would have to be the size of a 4 to 5 story building. They do try to explain it in the epilogue to this game, but it feels like they're trying too hard to explain away the most insane setups. What's next? We can't see pure black? you, this makes no sense logically. And please don't insult our intelligence by trying to make it plausible. The escape rooms are required to be solved in a certain order. There is no freedom to solve the puzzles. If you don't go in order, the puzzle can't be solved. It's frustrating. The Zero Escape games do have an order to them, but you are free to try and explore. There really isn't any of that in here. You can actually get ahead of the game, but you can't do anything out of order, even if you see where the puzzle's heading. There is difficulty levels depending on how much help you want in the investigations, the escape rooms, or the somniums. On the easiest setting, they'll actually give you clues until they'll straight up tell you the answer. So if you don't like escape rooms, there is a way around it and you can still experience the story. When you're not in an escape room or a somnium, you're going to be investigating, and these sections were the most boring. Mainly because they have you talking to people who have little to no information, and it just keeps getting dragged out. But they're here because they're part of the other two games, and usually they have a sliver of a clue, and that's how they justify it. It always slowed down the story. If you don't care though, you can speed through the dialogue by holding down a button. During one of the investigations, they went to a room, which I was angry about in the last game. And in this game, it's still there. There is no reality where this thing would still be there. Abyss, the agency they work for, would not have left it there. Now, to the game's credit, even Dante comments that it's crazy that it's still there. And it's operational. But with the exception of us saying he's going to talk to our boss about it, I don't think they're moving it. Like the other two games, there's a timeline that you could jump to. And you see all those branches on that button? That is a lie. This is a linear game. There's no branching this time around. They might as well just call it a story chapter button. The other two games use it to tell a story, and you can see the branching endings and learn from your mistakes. But not this time around, and that's disappointing. There are multiple endings, but they're mostly joke endings, or ones that you know are not true. They even put in fake credits so it's obvious. There's really only one real ending, and you'll know it when you see it. Now this is fully voice acted, and they do a great job. It's the best part of the game. The title is actually really funny at times. The characters are not really taking this seriously, and neither should you. Even when it looks like someone's gonna get their legs cut off, they still take the moment to dance in their seats. The tone shifts were odd, but also very on brand for the series. No Sleep for Kaname Dante from AI The Somnium Files was the worst of these three games. The story, while it had potential at the beginning, it slowly got worse and worse. The ending was obvious and overall it wasn't good. The escape rooms were too linear and the production design was too ridiculous to be real. Now this is normally $39.99 and unless you're a super fan of the series, I would wait for this to go on sale for less than $10. Anybody else, just skip it. The escape rooms were okay, but everything else was kind of dull. If you played the other two games, you will be disappointed with this. So unless you find it on a huge sale and you're a really big fan, I would just skip it.